Hey everybody and welcome in. I'm Griffin.
And I'm John.
And today we've got a really packed episode for you. We're going to be recapping some of the coolest things we saw at CES, including some awesome tech from Bosch and really promising concept motors.
Always lots of cool stuff coming out of that trade show.
In addition to that, we're going to dive into some of your comments on folding frames on electric trikes, needed or unnecessary.
Good question.
And then finally wrapping things up, we're going to be talking about if you want a commuter, but something that can ride on varied terrain while keeping a budget.
We'll find out in this week's episode of the Weekly Recharge. All right, in this section, we take a look at some of the cool e-bike related content that our team has found on the internet this past week and give you our reactions. So what do we have to start?
Well, let's dive on in. Okay, first up, looks like Instagram again this week. And we got some stuff from
10 Ways. Okay.
Shopping Days just got an upgrade, style and function all in one ride. Ooh, check it out.
The Seago 800.
Looks like it.
Looks very nice.
Doesn't look out of place in front of that little like fashion-y shop or whatever. You know all about fashion, John.
Right. Fashion.
Always cool to see. All right, what else do we have?
Next up from Specialized AU, we have a Porto cargo bike. That looks interesting.
Yeah, it does. Look at that. It's like
wow.
Okay.
Wonder if we'll see that here in the US.
It's like the Globe Hall sort of kind of, but full Specialized branding this time.
Totally.
Looking sleek though. I'm really interested by this one.
So I would bet that has a mid-drive then from the looks of things.
Kind of. I can't really tell you. Look at that.
It's a little dark, yeah.
Little dark chain guard in place. But
There's
something going on there though.
Something, for
Color
sure.
me intrigued. I want to know more though. Let us know, Specialized.
Yes. Send us one.
Okay, now we're taking a look at Brompton Kitchen. Owner upgrade the caliper to titanium blue to prevent rusty. Add personalized to this Brompton bike. So titanium bolt nut for the brake caliper. Okay,
that's
flashy.
flashy.
I always love the little accent colors, you know. Like,
me too, especially paired with black. That's very classy. Also, that light looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, it does. We got it all over. Let's see.
But that's nice. That's gorgeous.
I remember doing that on my first car. I had to get those, you know, like couldn't
you have
afford to get the
neons?
full hubcap, so you just get the little, you know, cap
Bolts. Okay.
for the tires. But very nice.
Yeah. All right, and next up we have another from Brompton Folding Bike. Popping a wheelie here, huh?
Not only that, but hauling some cargo.
Wow.
Tiny
okay.
bike, but moving some gear. Look at that. Wish everyone to always be on top of the new year. Happy New Year 25. Old photo from the internet, author unknown, but still very cool. Look at that.
Those are not standard handlebars, I do not think.
Definitely not. Look at those things, though. What's going on there?
Pretty wild. That's weird.
Look, they can grab onto the sides and stuff. Maybe you need that extra grip when you're like hauling cargo. Got to change things up.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay. Let's see. What are
Got
we doing
some
here,
music.
Elton? Great setup.
Wow. Those kids are they strapped in? They should be strapped in. Or maybe not.
I want to say they're strapped in, but I don't know. Well, that's a fun family day.
Yeah, they look like they're having a good time.
Yeah. More from Brompton Folding Bike.
All right, what do we have this time?
Still
Quickly
amazes me.
unfold. Oh, cool. Okay.
Oh.
Stop motion.
Stop. Flipbook style.
Very cool. I love this.
I just always applaud the effort. Like, you gotta go to so many different places. Like, that stuff's hard to put together, but
100%.
And fold it right back up into the world's smallest, most compact little folding bike.
He just rode in circles all day.
Pretty much.
All right, next up from Clandestine CC on Instagram. So what do we have here? Some bike packing.
I always love it when the frame bag fits the inner triangle just so perfectly like that. It's very satisfying.
It is very satisfying, I agree. As someone with OCD, nicely done.
But not only that, I mean, you got front and back storage as well. It's the carriers I had on show, but bespoke. This gear is gear of the year in the best in show category. I believe it looks sleek too.
Like that 3-color combination going on there. That looks pretty slick too.
And as always,
right.
amazing folks from Wizardworks made the bags that help make the carrier such an integrated, awesome thing around London. Well, sweet all-around bike. I like it.
Keep it coming, Wizardworks.
We're going streaking. Streaky cargo.
Okay.
Red Tokyo.
This is that bike we saw fairly recently.
Yeah, it's a really cool
right?
folder that's got like the tiered storage thing, so you can like put something in there,
Yes.
top and bottom, but
That's
like
right.
different take on cargo bikes. I like thinking outside the box, you know? Not to mention, got those 2 wheels up front.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I expect the handling would be pretty sweet on that thing.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, and then wrapping things up with Y Brandon on Instagram. We have a Ride One Up.
Looks like it.
What is that?
Let's see. Is that the limited or is that?
It kind of looks like limited.
I think it's a limited, but it's looking good.
It's got some fenders.
I got a new car. Vroom me. All right.
Looking good.
I mean, it's a car with 2 wheels, and it's the type that I'll take to work, any day of the week, gladly.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Great bike.
All around, some cool and interesting e-bike finds this week.
All right, and in this segment, we'll take a look at some of the top news articles from the past week or so. Starting things off with those discussions from CES, things that are new. So Bosch is leading things off here, introducing some new security features, including locking your battery. So that pairs with the Bosch Flow app and the Flow Plus subscription part of that app. But they're basically, they have a key that works with every lock on their bike. There's a mechanical lock that locks it into the bike, but then if it's out of the bike or if the bike gets stolen, you can use a digital lock to basically deactivate the battery entirely to prevent theft. And
it's really cool too, because we've seen similar apps before that have like the ability to lock your bike. But what I like about this is it essentially bricks the entire battery.
Right,
so
exactly.
if someone were to pry it off of your bike and try to resell it on the market, if they put that into a different bike, it's still not going to work. It totally shuts it down, makes it useless, and that's going to be in effect for all of their batteries, even like the Bosch PowerMore range extender. I actually think that's going to be a really cool added layer of theft prevention.
I totally agree, and I think that it's very cool that the key works with multiple batteries at the same time. So if you own a family's worth of bikes, you're secure with all of them there. Definitely seems worthwhile with the Flow Plus subscription as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of stuff came out of CES, including more stuff from Urtopia. Now, they actually stole a lot of headlines, not just in the cycling world last year, but just in the AI world, because they were the first bike to integrate with ChatGPT.
Right.
Fast forward to this year, they're not resting on their laurels. They're doing some really cool stuff, at least with a concept design. So, John, take a look at this bike. This is awesome. It's the Titanium Zero. So much cool stuff going on here. It's a 3D printed titanium frame. They claim it has the world's lightest, highest torque density motor. It's only 2.6 pounds, but it has 65 Newton meters of torque. It has a 300 watt hour solid state battery.
Okay.
That thing we're always being asked about.
Finally.
And it includes carbon wheels, fork, and crankset. It is SRAM 12-speed electronic shifting compatible. And I mean, it's not going into production anytime soon. They say that this concept cost around $50,000 to make, but it's just really cool. And it's just under 24 pounds as well. So I mean, just wild,
I would imagine that if it went into production, they'd probably not 3D print the frames. They'd probably go with some sort of casting method or something. So that
probably
would,
something
in
like
theory,
that.
Bring the cost down quite a bit. But you understand these concepts take a lot of money to develop, and
Exactly, and we see that a lot, like in the vehicle world. Like cars are always trotting out concepts that never get made or sent to public. However, it is kind of just cool to see what we can do and see how that trickles down into actual things that do show up on finalized products. So again, I think it's a really cool example of what can be done. Interesting to see moving forward how those things start to integrate into actual models.
I totally agree. I mean, if something like this becomes production capable, then that would make it, essentially the lightest e-bike out there. So
pretty much.
That's wild. Moving on, there is a bill in New York City that proposes banning 100-pound or plus e-bikes, specifically Class 3 e-bikes.
Sounds like fat shaming to me, but anyway.
So the New York governor, Hochul's State of the State, says she will specifically reclassify Class 3 e-bikes weighing, quote, 100 pounds or more as mopeds, which then triggers the requirement for a driver's license and registration. So this change will keep the heaviest and most dangerous e-bikes out of bike lanes, improving safety for pedestrians and other cyclists. At least that is what their thought process is. That just seems maybe like not that effective of an approach to monitor limiting e-bikes.
I think my first take on this was it sounds like a politician just doing something because it's politics and stuff like that. There's not a huge amount of e-bikes that weigh north of 100 pounds.
We've tested like 4, yeah.
I was gonna say, it's very rare. Now, if it is targeting the Surons, Telarias, like electric motorcycles or dirt bikes or something like
that's
that,
one
that's
thing.
Fine, by all means, get those out. But again, actual e-bikes that exceed that, very, very rare. So I just don't know if that's a huge safety impact, but sure.
There was one thing interesting in this article. Ben Furness, the executive director of Transportation Alternatives, basically pointed out that this seems to kind of unfairly target delivery workers, and so that's primarily people
Yeah.
testing or riding cargo bikes, which, you know, of the few that we've tested that weighed over 100 pounds, those made up the majority. Cargo bikes, they're very heavy.
Like a long-tail cargo bike, maybe a dual battery setup, and then throw on a whole bunch of extra accessories that do help you transport the gear, then maybe you're tipping the scales on 100 pounds. So yeah, that could, you know, indirectly harm, you know, a part of the population that New York City depends on. There's a lot of couriers and delivery drivers that way. So hopefully, you know, they can, you know, smooth out some of those finer details to make sure it doesn't indirectly harm those types of riders.
We'll keep our fingers crossed, definitely.
And then finally, so we were talking about legislation on one end of the country. Let's go to the other end. Oregon is seeking to ban Class 3 e-bikes in bike lanes. So part of the article here from Electrek talks about the proposed legislation is effectively a ban on electric bikes capable of speeds exceeding 20 miles per hour from being used in bike lanes. Goes on to state that in addition, Section 2 of the bill seeks to remove key protections for cyclists operating such 20 plus mile per hour e-bikes in bike lanes. Under current law, a motorist can be cited for failing to yield right away to a cyclist in a bike lane when the motorist crosses over the bike lane, such as when going into a driveway or parking lot. But the proposed legislation would remove the requirement for motorists to yield right away to cyclists on Class 3 e-bikes in bike lanes.
Why?
So I just don't agree with this at all.
No.
I just don't find this particularly helpful. We've said this several times before, but when it comes to talking about safety for everyone from, you know, motorists to cyclists to pedestrians, cars are the ones you have to worry about the most. If someone in a car hits someone on a bike or hits a pedestrian, the car is going to quote unquote win. They're going to be safe.
Totally.
If a person on a bike hits a pedestrian, probably both parties are. So it's kind of one of those things. I don't know why we're trying to target bikes and suddenly kick Class 3 bikes out of bike lanes.
Right.
Like, what does that solve?
Accomplish.
What does that help? And even like, you know, some of those sections there about suddenly motorist doesn't need to yield. I don't see how this is helpful. Forcing bikes out of bike lanes and back onto the streets. Someone's got to make sense of that for me.
Well, and also there was another point in that article about how the Class 3 bikes and Class 1 and 2 bikes look identical, so a motorist is not going to be able to separate those when they're looking at them visually. So why would things need to change?
And you know, if it's a Class 2 e-bike that the motor takes you to 20 and then you're pointed downhill and you're suddenly going 25, is it because it's an e-bike and it's exceeding that? Are we gonna, like, who's monitoring this? Who's getting up in arms? Again, this is, you know, legislation. I would encourage those trying to draft these bills to really think it through and actually talk to either people for bikes.
Yes.
Reach out and talk to us if you want to.
Or get on a bike yourself.
We need a little more
like,
common sense legislation regarding this, because I don't see this helping pedestrians at all. I just see it kind of potentially putting cyclists in harm's way. So.
I completely agree, and hopefully we don't see this actually go into effect.
Definitely. So that's going to do it for this week's headlines. All right, now we'd like to give you a little peek behind the curtain with some of the projects we have in the works. So we don't have any reviews that we're working on currently. However, we are getting very close to releasing our Best Electric Bikes of 2025 video. So please make sure you're subscribed and check that video out when it goes live. It's honestly the video that we spend the most time on throughout the entire year. We're very excited for you guys to see it.
It's a big production, yeah.
Yeah, make sure you catch that one once it's live. However, we do have a couple of reviews that did go live. John, what is it that we had?
Yeah, so two of mine. So the full review of the Aventon Abound SR, so that's a short tail, or in this case, short rack cargo or utility bike.
Yeah.
So a lot of cool features about that. There's the smart module from Aventon, the ACU, that has a 4G chip included there. So you have GPS tracking, you have geofencing, you have a bunch of security features. You can set up an alarm. You can also lock the kickstand and battery in place. A lot of cool tech there.
And you know, with that, that's really uncommon too, because that's on a bike that's actually like affordably priced. We've seen some of that tech before on like the $10,000 to $13,000 bikes.
100%.
It's not every day that we hear of something that's
sub $2,000.
Sub $2,000 that you can have like 4G connectivity to. That's just objectively sweet.
So. Kind of mind blowing, yeah, for sure. And then the second review that is going live is the Brompton Electric C-Line. So that is the 12-speed model, the Explorer model that we tested. That is super lightweight, ultra portable and compact folding bike. Brompton is basically the folding bike company in Europe. They're based out of London, England, and this thing is very cool. I mean, it folds down to be essentially 2 feet by 2 feet by 1 foot. It's 38 pounds.
If you haven't seen it before, it's kind of a trip the first time. I mean, you could like throw this thing in a backpack almost and walk around with it. It just gets
insane.
So compact, and there's really cool engineering behind it. It's really one of a kind. So
Agreed. I had a lot of fun testing that. So if that interests you at all, again, be sure you're subscribed and check that out when it goes live. All right, in this segment, we take you around the country and sometimes around the world to talk about various trails or trail systems or cities with cool infrastructure geared around bikes. So Griffin, today we're going to Maine, is that right?
That is correct, and this is a really cool location. I really dug into this when I found it because it's kind of like a national park that's on an island.
Cool.
But I'm a sucker for getting like diverse scenery kind of like all in the same spot. So this one's got forest views, coastal scenery, lakes to check out, and really cool old bridges built like 100 years ago.
Wow.
So let's walk you through
great.
some of the finer details. So again, it's the Acadia National Park in Maine. It was originally, there's lots of different trails that were originally constructed for horses and carriages back between 1913 and 1940, actually designed by John D. Rockefeller, for those who recognize that name.
That's very cool.
And the roads are still a popular way to get around the Mount Desert Island today. Now there's 45 total miles of trails to check out,
wow.
And it consists of several different smaller loops, the longest one being about 10 miles, but just lots of different ways to kind of take it all in. You know, it's a lot of those loops are car free, and so you can, you know, ride safely. Some of them do share traffic with vehicles, and it does have some kind of like limited shoulders, so just, you know, prepare for that, pick your route accordingly. But again, just check out some of these pictures. I mean, really awesome looking at some of these old bridges, just look at the scenery. It's just really cool stuff. Now, a few things to know before going to visit there. It is Class 1 e-bikes only, so disconnect those throttles and drop Class 3 speeds down to Class 1. But I mean, other than that, no other restrictions. You can just ride around, take the whole thing in. And you can even sign up, and you can even sign up for local-led Ranger bike tours in the area. That'll take you about 2.5 hours. They have bike rentals available. You can stop at Jordan Pond House for some of their famous tea and popovers. Sign me up.
Tasty. Yeah.
And then, I mean, overall, it's just a cool little island exploration getaway. Cool scenery, cool stuff to check out. I mean, it just looked really awesome.
I checked out these photos, tons of bridges that looked absolutely gorgeous. I'm a sucker for a good forest as well, and there's just forest all over the place here. Ponds, you have the coast. I mean, there's all kinds of beautiful scenery here.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you ever find yourself, you know, in the northeastern part of the United States, or, you know, if you're a Canadian wanting to come over the border, definitely a cool place to go and check out. But that's going to do it for us this week. However, as always, we invite you guys, if there's somewhere awesome that you're riding, it can be a big thing like a national park, or even just your local, you know, city or town with good infrastructure, let us know, shout them out, and we might feature them in a future episode.
Drop it down in the comments. All right, this is one of our favorite segments of the show where we take a look at some of the top questions and comments from either YouTube or our website, electricbikereport.com. So starting things off, this is a comment from the Retrospec Boca Rev Trike review, and that was on YouTube. This is from Bob Fitzsimmons, 3490. And he says, like any trike, the main issue with mature riders or persons with mobility issues, the platform to fit the road is priority number one. Balance is vital. Watching this rider take the turn at slow speed and slight grade makes me wary. Folding would be great for some folks and not needed for others. If frame holds up over time, it looks like a viable alternative to getting off a regular bike and back riding. Slower speeds are a must, unfortunately. From a very mature e-step through bike rider. What would you say in response to that, Griffin?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for writing in, Bob. And actually, we got a lot of really good comments on this one. I actually asked people to let me know what they thought about the folding frame, and so many of you wrote in, so thank you very much. And, you know, just with that, I 100% agree with Bob that when it comes to trike design, like, balance is super key and vital. We try to shout that out on every trike that we review. We kind of start there because trike riders in general want something a little bit more balanced when it's, you know, for mounting and getting on, or even when it's stopped. You know, if you can balance on two wheels, you're probably going that way. But for those who can't, they want a different alternative, and trikes are perfect for that. So, you know, in the case of the Boca Rev, I actually gave it lots of kudos. One of the most balanced and, you know, sturdy and stable trikes that I've ridden to date.
Pretty wide rear wheels.
I was going to say the axle in the back was the second widest that we've ever measured. So definitely one of the more stable feeling rides out there.
Cool.
And then, you know, jumping into like some of like Bob's other comments on here, you talked about watching me take it like going slower on turns and stuff like that. And, you know, that's not really a deterrent for trike riders because, again, largely I think they're just kind of like happy to have some sort of ride to get out and just enjoy being outside. That type of design is inherently something that should be operated more slowly. That's why they even cap the speeds on a lot of them around 14, 15 miles per hour.
Yep.
And I would tell most folks they don't even have to max that out. Just get out and enjoy it. And yeah, definitely like slow down into those turns. We recommend you don't take a turn at anything greater than 5 miles per hour, even slower if you need to. But other than that, it's just really great for getting out and enjoying it. And then finally kind of jumping into, the frame design, like the heart of my question for people.
Sure.
We kind of, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, John, but I feel like we see lots of folding frames on trikes, and more often than not, we're just like, I don't know that it needed it, but it's there.
I do agree with that. I mean, I drive a Kia Forte hatchback, and we were able to, the XP trike, fold that up and stash it in the hatch of my car.
So it can definitely be a difference maker for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, but how many people are actually doing that? That's a good question. I guess if you have a folding trike that you do that with, let us know. But
so overall, pertaining to both that review and in general, it's like I usually find it a feature that I don't know that it's needed, but it also doesn't seem to compromise things or get in the way. I know for myself, and I'm pretty sure for you, like when we first started working here and reviewing anything with a folding frame, it's kind of like, am I going to trust it? And you actually quickly develop the trust. They build those things very, they're very like sturdy.
Yep.
So like it kind of has it. I don't know that it needs it, but it's there. And overall, again, for that particular trike, I just thought it was a really good, solid all-around ride.
Yeah, looks good too. What is our next question?
So next one comes from Ro from the website on the Blix Soul X review. One of yours, good sir.
That is one of mine.
So it says, hey guys, I really enjoy your site and videos. You definitely own the electric bike space on the web. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
My question is, I have the Aventon Level 2. It's a great bike, as you know. However, it's rough going over bumps on the road. I have installed a suspension seat post, though perhaps it's not adjusted optimally, which helps. But I'm wondering if you could recommend some bikes in the $3,500 range or less that can be ridden on some rough terrain smoothly while also serving as a commuter bike. Any type of bike, MTB, gravel, etc. That does both well is fine. Ideally, I'm looking for a Class 3 bike with a torque sensor and a throttle. So, all right, John, let's help out Ro here.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a very good question. Looking through the bikes that we've reviewed, the SUV category stands out as probably what you're looking for. That can really do a little bit of both. And I chose 3 options to recommend that are all full suspension to some degree. We have a bunch that are hardtail essentially, so only the front fork, but these 3 are some good options that give you a little bit more squish and comfort. So first off is the U-Free Stellar Falcon. That's in my mind kind of the epitome of an SUV bike. It has kind of a fairly upright riding position, very commuter styled, but it is very off-road capable. It has a suspension seat post, suspension fork with, I believe that's 80 or 100 millimeters of travel. I didn't note that down. But nice motor, 750 with a torque and cadence sensor you can swap between. Just a great bike. We use it for filming a lot.
I was like, yeah, well, that's actually one that we frequently use. Just good power, good
versatile,
good features for, again, on road or off, it can kind of hold up and isn't out of place in either setting.
Totally. Next was the Mach Wheel Obsidian. So that's if you want something maybe a little bigger, maybe a little bit more powerful. That is a fairly big and heavy fat tire e-bike with a 1,000-watt rear hub motor that has a torque sensor. We find this is really well suited to like the sort of double track fire road, desert roads that we have here. There's an area where we take those out testing. But
I was gonna say it's a little bit bigger and on the heavier side, but that could be a good thing. I'm actually, as a larger rider myself, I usually like large rides.
They're nice and stable. They just feel really solid.
Definitely.
And that thing has plenty of power if you like riding fast.
Yep.
And then finally the Specialized Turbo Tiro X 4.0 model. So that is, leans more into the EMTB side of things for sure, but that was designed to be both a commuter and an EMTB. When we reviewed that, it was very capable on single track. That has, the 250-watt mid-drive from Specialized there. Just really great all-around bike, very comfortable, full suspension there as well, very quality components. And then to run through prices, so the U-Free Stellar Falcon and the Mach Wheel Obsidian are both priced right around $2,200. And then the Specialized Turbo Tiro, again, the 4.0 model, is actually on sale right now for right within your price limit, the $3,500 price point. So got a little bit of a range there to choose from. Hopefully you can find something there that helps.
Yeah, hopefully the variety of options works for you, and let us know if you do check out any of those bikes.
Yes, definitely. And then moving on, a question from Ellie Shrug on the Aventon Abound SR First Impressions review on YouTube. She asks, how does this compare in size to a normal bike, especially the back end with no accessories? And then a second part to the question, I know it's not recommended, but could I feasibly fit someone about 25 pounds over the recommended rear rack limit onto it?
Okay, so some good questions in there. So how it does size-wise compared to a normal bike is always a hard question to answer,
For
just
sure.
because everyone's definition of normal is different. So with that in mind, I would say it size-wise it's a little bit smaller by my definition. However, it still handles remarkably similar to what I would also call a quote-unquote normal
regular
bike.
yeah.
Exactly. So I don't think you're compromised in that situation. Now, as far as should you exceed the weight rating, look, for the sake of safety, I don't ever want to recommend going over what a manufacturer has listed as the optimal weight rating on that. I'm not,
cap.
like, sometimes you can get away with it probably, but at the same time, they put those caps on it for a reason. So I wouldn't necessarily advise you to go over that. However, if you are really needing something that has a little bit of extra carrying capacity, there are a couple of other options that you can look at as well. We've tested some similar bikes in the same vein as the Abound SR. So for example, the Rad Runner series, either the Rad Runner 2 or Rad Runner 3 Plus comes with 120 pound capacity on those ones. So that's something that might fit a little bit better. It has a lot of similar functions. You can put gear on there or people on there, whatever it is you're looking to do. And then the Specialized Globe Haul ST also has a very stout rear rack that's still kind of that more utility style, short tail, cargo, whatever you want to call it. That one goes all the way up to 132 pounds. And then from there, I mean, if you're, if you do want something that maximizes, like, doesn't even come close to that max limit, I would say look at long tail cargo bike options as well. There's slightly different handling characteristics, but I mean, not as drastic as I think some people anticipate.
I think you feel the length a little bit.
You can feel the length a little bit, and like if you go off a curb or something, like it's a harder thunk, kind of like hitting behind you. But like overall, again, they're e-bikes, and the motor makes a huge difference as compared to just a traditional cargo bike. So maybe look at some long tail ones. You can go for the full size Abound, or look at like the Electric Expedition 2.0 or something like that.
I think something that's worth adding to that is that the Abound SR there has that really natural feeling ride with the torque sensor, the super responsive torque sensor.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you do want to stick with the utility style, maybe go with the Globe Haul ST. That and the Abound SR both have a very similar feel. But the both Rad Runner models have cadence sensors, so they're going to ride a little bit differently. But if you're hauling a lot of cargo, we usually find that type of sensor and that type of motor responsiveness to be really well suited.
Something we enjoy,
yeah.
Cool. All right, so moving along, we've got next the Ride One Up Roadster V3 review. Is there enough cable slack to put a riser bar on it? I love this bike, but would need the handlebars to be a few inches higher. It looks like it has a special stem, so probably cannot swap that out to raise the handlebars. Good question.
That is a good question. I took a look at this bike over there and in our warehouse. So you're probably right in thinking that you don't want to swap out that stem. It is a custom stem, so the sort of joint between the stem and the head tube it would look a little bit weird and might fit a little bit weird. But then there's also the fact that the cables are internally routed.
Cable routing. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So you're gonna get in the weeds very quickly with that. But there's definitely enough slack in the cables to swap out the handlebars. Measured, took off the front of the stem and kind of played around with that a little bit, and found that you've got enough room for maybe about 4 inches or 100 millimeters of rise. So that's actually quite a bit of flexibility there. I would say just be careful with like the width of the handlebars. If you go wider than what's on there, that's going to add length because you're putting the shifter and the brake levers on there. So that's taking up extra length. So stick kind of within that same limit of what the bike
try
has.
To maximize going up, because if you go up and out, then you're going to lose that slack.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're going out, then go a little bit lower on the rise. So.
Definitely. Cool.
And then let's see, I think this is our last question. Actually, no, not quite yet. So this is from the Momentum Cito E Plus review on YouTube from Sir Wolf 3439. Hi, Griffin.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you, how would you say this bike performs in comparison to the Momentum Pakyak E Plus cargo bike? Is there any spec differences or improvements in this latest model E cargo bike?
Cool. Thank you, Sir Wolf, for the question. So, full disclosure, we have not tested out the Pakyak yet. However,
looks cool.
Looks really awesome, and I did pull up the specs, and I'm going to break down some of the biggest differences that I think they have. So, first things first, the Cito has a 750 watt rear hub motor and a throttle, where the Pakyak has a 250 watt mid drive and no throttle. So, fundamentally different experiences. This is oversimplifying things, but the hub motor goes a little bit faster, a little bit easier. With a mid-drive motor, it's a little bit more subtle and a little bit better control typically.
A bit more natural feeling.
Often a bit more natural feeling as well. The Cito has a suspension fork, where the Pakyak has a suspension seat post. So that's kind of taking over, some of the comfort duties there. Pakyak will likely have better steering when loaded down, since it does have a rigid fork, but it might be a little bit, bumpier. Kind of just depends. Trade-offs.
Depends on tire pressure as well.
Yeah, 100%. Sort of and then the Cito has a 780 watt-hour battery, where the Pakyak has a 500 watt-hour battery now. I know it sounds like one is a clear winner. However, again, different motors and different types of efficiency. We would expect probably maybe a little bit better range on the Pakyak, just kind of considering the motor-battery combination. I don't think it would be drastically different from what we got on the Cito, but that would just kind of be my anticipation looking at the numbers. And then, the Cito has an 8-speed microshift drivetrain with a 345% gear range, while the Pakyak has a 5-speed Shimano Nexus internally geared hub, which are pretty cool. But it has a slightly more limited 263% gear range on that one. So again, wider gear range, a little bit more optionality for how you approach hills or how you build up speed on a flat or things like that. So kind of just coming back, I obviously can't give a full recommendation here, having only ridden one of the two bikes. I will just kind of throw out there, for me personally, I find myself preferring hub motors when it comes to cargo bikes. I just appreciate the extra power, just a little bit more easier time getting going when I got my kids on the back or I'm hauling some gear. Now, that being said, this is coming from someone who lives in a place with bike lanes that are wide open and easy to navigate. If I were in a, New York, Seattle, like some city that's a little bit more densely populated, a little bit more crowded in the bike lanes, I might prefer the control of the mid-drive.
That makes sense.
And especially if it's a little bit more flatter terrain, I don't need tons of extra power. So just a couple of things to consider if you are deciding between those two.
They both look like good options.
Yeah, can't really go wrong. And then, all right, now we're on to our last question. This is from the Best E-Bikes for Heavy Riders video from Zandorovkov7257.
Good job.
So he says, my problem is that I'm fat and short, and most bikes for fat people are made for tall riders. So we did have a little bit of back and forth here. We told him, hey, that definitely seems to be the case a lot, but we included a lot of bikes on that list that would help with either step through or mid-step frame. All of them but the Rambless on that particular list do have that option. So we asked how tall he was. He said, I'm 5'5", and yes, this video did give me several bikes to check out. Thank you. So oftentimes that is the case, but there are bikes that work for larger riders who are also shorter too.
Definitely. Excuse me. So the kind of response to this that I put together was, directed at the commenter here, but also to anyone that's, in that 5'5" range or shorter as well. So most bikes that we review do accommodate riders that are around 5'5". So basically, again, everything on that list is going to be able to accommodate you if you're at that point. The Adventure 2 is a great example. That's a pretty big, heavy bike, but it's actually recommended for riders as short as 4'11". So there's two frame sizes there. The regular size does go down to that level. And then actually, a lot of the options on that list are also below the 5 foot mark. So, if you are pretty short and a little bit heavier, then most of the bikes on that list are going to work for you. And then, you could always look to add some pedal blocks to a bike if you do find yourself wanting one that maybe doesn't quite go down as short as you are. But that should help accommodate.
So overall, thank you again so much for the questions and comments. Make sure to keep them coming either on the website, on YouTube, or we even have an email set up. If you email questions@electricbikereport.com, that can also reach us directly if you got something you want to run by either John or I.
We appreciate it. Hey, Griffin.
Hey, John.
You know what time it is.
Oh, I know what time it is.
It is time for Deals of the Week. Deals of the Week. And
it was another day where my snap was not very loud.
Mine were also not great.
That's the one I wanted?
There you go. Good job. Let's see, starting things off with some deals from 10ways. They have several models off between $200 and $500 off, and then you can save an extra $100 when you buy 2 bikes.
Nice.
So the Seago 600 Pro chain and cassette version is $300 off, down to $15.99.
Okay.
The Seago 800S ST model that we saw earlier in the Cool Finds section with the Gates belt drive is $200 off, down to $17.99.
A lot of other cool tech on that bike as well.
Yeah, really
cool features.
It looks great. And then the Ego X, which is one of my personal faves, is $500 off, down to $19.99.
So those are some like really good savings on awesome bikes. 10ways, again, it's a brand that we feel people are sleeping on. That's something that, definitely go check them out if you haven't looked at them before. And hey, gotta love the savings too.
They look great, they ride great.
Speaking of brands we feel don't get enough love, let's talk about U-Freeze. So they have $100 off their models, either City Robin X Plus or the U-Freeze Stellar Falcon. And you can get 20% off of accessories. So we really like, both of these bikes. City Robin X Plus in particular is a really comfortable, like, cruiser, commuter, hybrid type thing, but lots of, like enhanced comfort features there. A lot to appreciate. So folks, definitely check that one out if you're looking for something new.
Yeah, and we mentioned the City Robin before, so if that SUV style interests you, highly recommend.
Each week we shout out a writer from our audience, and we just want to take a moment and thank you guys for following along, watching this episode, and following us on YouTube. Again, your support means so much to us. And if you aren't already, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and comment down below. But
do all the things.
Yeah, do all the usual YouTube things. However, let's go ahead and give a shout out to someone in our audience this week. John, who do we have?
Yeah, this week we have Pin the Sky, who commented on the Aventon Rambless review on YouTube here. So a little bit of back and forth here. This person originally said, Rambless is a true beast. Have mine for over 4 months and 0 regrets. So we responded with, glad to hear you're loving it. How many miles have you put on it so far? And they said, approaching 600 miles, but kind of slow for now. Snowy winter days. Anxiously waiting for a 40-degree day. LOL.
It's cold when you're anxiously awaiting a 40 degrees.
Yeah. Maybe it's Celsius. Who knows?
Maybe so.
Surface of the sun levels.
But anyway, thanks so much for writing in Pin the Sky, and thank you again for watching.
And if you want to be focused on this segment, do be sure to reach out to us.